Ain't gonna lie, I can't stand this bitch. Yo, I swear to God, I hated this bitch the whole series, bro. I wish she took Mr. Greener's place. And that bitch, they hit that bitch on the top of the fucking head with that fucking shit. That's why that bitch got fired. And she was crying. She was glazing the fucking founder. Had that nigga shrine and shit. They got rid of your old ass like it was nothing. She looked kind of good though.
I love this nigga right here.
So shout out to Apple TV. You know, I recently got put on to y'all about less than a month ago, but I didn't know y'all had bangers. Now, I just finished the Silo about a week ago. And then my homeboy was like, hey, you gotta watch this shit called Severance, bro. He likes to point like this a lot of times when he talks. I don't know why. He said, you gotta watch this show called Severance. I'm like, you know, most of the times I always tell him I'm gonna take suggestions, but I be lying. You know what I'm saying? I just put it in the watch later. I ain't watching that shit. And it's not even a bad show. I'm just not gonna get around to it. I'm gonna forget. But this time, I said, fuck that shit. I'm following through. He said this shit is good. I got to see what he's talking about. Severance has 9 episodes. They're about an hour a piece. Knocked that down in a day ski. Or really a day and a half ski. Started yesterday. Fell asleep to it. Woke up to it. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of shit I was on. I was tryharding. I ain't gonna lie. I was binging. I'm on my binge shit. Alright. So, he was like, because I told him to watch the Silo, right? I told my homie to watch the Silo. But he was like, in order for him to watch the Silo, I gotta watch Severance, and then I'll tell him which one was better. And I came to the conclusion that the Silo is better. I don't know. I ain't gonna lie, the Severance might low key be better. I don't know. No, the Silo's better by like this much.
My Audi does muscle shows for sure. My delts are embarrassingly good today.
For the love of Kier, please just sever me till season 2 comes out.
Yo,
because this
y'all want to know what like Severance? If you ever wanted to experience Severance, I just kind of look at it as like watching porn. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I'm chilling in my bed, and next thing you know, I just like wake up with fucking nut on my stomach. That's the Severance.
Was one of the best I've seen in a long time. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the show.
I didn't get his pain.
Unanswered questions, season 2 theories that will have you begging for a waffle party, and if you play your cards right, you may even get a handshake.
Oh wait.
The finale begins with our innies successfully engaging in what's called the overtime contingency, allowing them access to their bodies in the outside world. It's revealed that Helly R is in fact Helena Egan, the daughter of Lumen Industries CEO James Egan, who we've actually seen in mannequin form back in episode 3. Her being severed is all part of a publicity stunt to show how safe and effective severing can be.
And I would never ask them to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself.
This is why Milchick is so happy when Helena, or should I say Helly, arrives on her first day.
When we heard you were coming here, it was like a miracle. It's amazing what you're doing.
It's also why we see him taking photographs of her in the office throughout her stay. The act of severing is highly contentious, with several states banning the practice altogether, so Helena has taken this drastic step to show the world how we shouldn't fear it. The problem is, severing is cruel. Helena's innie is so desperate to escape she tries to kill herself, but I think there's something deeper here, that Helena is also doing this to appease her father. As we've seen in the Hall of Perpetuity, Lumen CEOs all belong to the Egan family. Although we haven't seen the real Helena in the outside world, she must have a tremendous sense of familial obligation and pride, something her father reiterates to her.
The grandfather would cherish what you've done.
The grandfather here likely refers to Kier Egan, the founder of Lumen, and fun fact,
Yeah, they be glazing that nigga, bro.
Meaning the dark
That
one.
nigga was a slave master. Come on, bro. Let's be honest with you, man. If I was working at the Severance, I'd be in the motherfucking kitchen, and he'd be like, boy, bring my food before I beat your ass. I don't know however slave masters talk.
Helena ironically means shining light in Greek, while Helly
I know how to
means
cook, and I'm like
hellish.
brown.
Check
so.
out this shot here where we can see the word hell clearly made out. I guess it makes sense then that the first image we see of Helly is of her on a coffin-shaped table in an episode titled Good News About Hell. Speaking of Helena's father, I should also mention that those who attend the break room often recount hearing something in the background while reciting the compunction statement, that weird apology thing Helly recites into the mirror. Dylan says that when he's in the break room, he's heard a baby crying, which could be one of his 2 other children if Milchick is to believe that Dylan has 3 kids. Helly, however, heard the sound of a mumbling, angry man. Could that person be her father? In her brief interaction in the outside world, we're also reintroduced to Gabby and Angelo Arteta. Gabby was the woman Devon met who underwent severance so she wouldn't have to live through the pain of giving birth. Her husband is a pro-severance senator, so it makes sense that someone like Helena and the Egans would want to be close to people in positions of power. In Helly's final moments as her outie, she proclaims to everyone at the Egan family gala that everything they know about severance is a lie and that the innies are being tortured. Now this may seem like a deeply
I still don't get that black goose shit, but
calamitous event, but keep in mind this
why
is
did I
a
pause
private
for that?
friends and family of the Egans event. This little blip can be easily covered up. Plus, if anything does leak to the media, it's likely to be suppressed, as Lumen seems to have insiders in all aspects of the media. On March 18th, Apple released a companion book to the TV series called Severance: The Lexington Letter. I'll leave a link to it in the description below for those interested. It's a tell-all story about a woman who was able to bypass the code detectors and pass along notes to her outie. She reached out to a reporter at a newspaper to tell her story and expose Lumen, but one of the editors there suppressed the story. The name of that editor? Jim Milchick. If this book is to be believed, it implies that Seth Milchick has family on the outside that also is involved in covering up Lumen's nefarious deeds. Perhaps even more mysterious than Helena,
I can't
is
stand that
Irving's
nigga.
family. On the inside, Irving is arguably Kier's biggest supporter, being able to recite passages from the handbook from memory and a stalwart rule follower. It's pretty interesting then that on the outside he's the opposite, trying to expose Lumen. Let's take a look at some of the interesting things we find in his apartment. First, there's his dog Radar. This was actually hinted at back in episode 3 when Irving attends a wellness meeting.
Your outie likes the sound of rain.
Bro, when I first seen her, I knew she was important. She almost brings me tears. And as you see my shoulders up, because I'm rubbing my hand on the screen and rubbing on her Michael Jackson nose. It's okay. You're alive.
Radar.
It's like a little ASMR. I was vibing. You know, I used to watch ASMR.
Also has a number of what appears to be military medals. We aren't sure if these are his or those of his father's, who seems to have been in the US Navy. If Irving was in the military, it's possible he chose to sever to escape some form of PTSD. In fact, art therapy is one of the ways in which PTSD sufferers process traumatic events in a new way. I'll get back to his black elevator paintings later on in the video. But the big shocker here is that Irving has a locked chest filled with interesting goodies. First is this news article about a man suing Lumen for workplace injuries, claiming that Lumen hid the real cause of the loss of feeling in his finger. He received a letter on his windshield explaining that it was due to a printer-related injury, similar to when Mark got one on his windshield after Helly threw an intercom at him. More importantly is this list of severed employees that Irving has been tracking. Here we can see Dylan G's name, but it's actually the names we never see that are more interesting. There is no mention of Miss Casey or Mark's wife, Gemma Scout, and I'll get to why that may be in a bit. It's completely possible
They kidnapped that
Irving
bitch!
has or was working with former Lumen employee Petey and or Ragabi. In episode 3, Petey tells Mark that someone helped him escape and that there are people out there wanting to expose Lumen. This could be Ragabi, Irving, or both. Petey even says to Mark that at Lumen,
I'm your best friend. You're my very good friend.
this is such a weird thing to say. It's
Nah,
almost
that
as
was
if
funny.
Petey is implying he has a best friend on the inside that isn't Mark, and that person could be Irving. Along with the employee list is a map of Kier, Pennsylvania, with a number of locations of Kier employees, or at
Wouldn't
least
really
that's
make
what's
sense.
implied considering Burt Goodman, the man Irving fell in love with on the inside, is on that map. Now, it may be coincidence, but all the names on the map are men. Irving will later drive to Burt's, but has his heart crushed to see him with another man. And it's gonna be super awkward when Burt opens the door to find Irving, who is banging on it, transformed back into his regular outie self. In Season 2, expect us to find out more about Irving's investigation. At the end of Episode 7, we learn that Miss Casey, the wellness counselor, is Mark Scout's wife, Gemma. It's only when he's transported to the outie world that he finds this out, and that she's still alive. The whole reason Mark chose to have his life severed was to escape the pain of dealing with his wife's death. The first scene we see of Mark is him grieving her in his car, using a tissue to wipe away his tears. A tissue he'll find in his innie's pocket and throw away like nothing into a nearby waste receptacle, a metaphor for him throwing away his grief. But
I didn't even pick up on that when I first seen the show. Holy fuck, this shit gets deep. I'm gonna have to run it back.
as his sister tells him, this is only a band-aid solution for something much larger.
Forgetting about her for 8 hours a day isn't the same thing.
You gotta grieve.
If Mark is truly going
gotta
to heal,
heal.
he'll need to realize that severance isn't the solution. There isn't much we know about Miss Casey. She supposedly died in a car accident, but my guess is that Lumen picked her up to be experimented on. After all, Lumen started as a healthcare company and likely owns many hospitals. Unlike the other employees, we never see Miss Casey in the outside world. I believe she never leaves Lumen. That dark hallway with an elevator that only points downward, that may be where she lives. In episode 3, Petey says he found a department at Lumen where no one leaves, and on his map he has a section that reads, "Some people might live here." If this is the case, Miss Casey...
Yo, I ain't gonna lie, this show is like, you would think it's scary, but it's not even scary. It's almost like this is like the definition of mystery. Like yo, we gotta clap it up. This is like the definition, not too many. This is like the definition of mysterious,
lives in a perpetual state of severedness, never being able to return to her real outie self.
started crying,
if a company
bro.
were able to do this to
Ain't gonna lie,
workers,
I can't stand this bitch. Yo, I swear to God, I hated this bitch the whole series, bro. I wish she took Mr. Greener's place, and that they hit that bitch on the top of the fucking head with that fucking shit. That's why that bitch got fired, and she was crying. She was glazing the fucking founder, had that nigga shrine and shit. They got rid of your old ass like it was nothing. She looked kind of good though. I like the hair. I like the hair. Yo, and no, when I realized that her or Mr. Milchick wasn't even Severance at all. Oh my God, that shit was crazy. That shit was crazy.
The effects it could have on millions. James Egan tells Helly that he one day wishes every person on the planet will have one of these chips in them, which hints at what Lumen's end game is: full control. And this leads me into
He's Elon Musk.
Numbers Macro Refinement spends all their time inputting. For more insight into this, we have to go back to the Lexington letter I mentioned in the first section.
Talk
in
to
it,
me.
the INI whistleblower notes that she finished a macro refinement file called Lexington at 2:30 p.m. Just 2 minutes later, a truck belonging to a Lumen competitor, Dorner Therapeutics, exploded, destroying several Dorner devices and killing 6 people. Although the whistleblower concedes this could just be a coincidence, the timing is very close. Could this encrypted data the macro refinement department sorts be triggering dangerous events in the outside world, such as a bomb going off, hence the secrecy behind their jobs? This may also explain some of the items we see Optics and Design creating with their 3D printers. It's noted that last week they were instructed to make items that were, quote, particularly violent.
Hatchets.
These included hatchets, but this week's it's watering cans, so who knows? The numbers themselves are sorted into 4 categories: WO, numbers that make you sad; FC, numbers associated with happiness and joy; DR, numbers that scare you; and MA, numbers that make you angry. These line up with Kier's 4 tempers.
What the fuck? Is that a whip? I know how this goes.
Woe, frolic, dread, and malice. Kier believed the 4 tempers make up every human soul, and depending on what kind of race you have, it determines your character. It is said that Kier was able to tame these tempers, which gave him power, and that power he wants to pass on to his children. The 4 tempers are represented in physical form.
When they was doing this freaky ass shit, at first I was like, oh shit, they got the bitches out. But then they brought a nigga. Crazy, right?
Formed by the weird dancers Dylan is treated to after his waffle party. One of these is a goat, and goats appear all over the show, most notably in the goat
Okay, ain't lie. That scene kind of scared me just a little bit, like 10%.
And in weird background sculptures. Historically, goats have symbolized everything from virility and sacrifice to Satanism, so it's not really clear yet why Lumen would have a whole area reserved for raising them.
That's why they call it Braun the goat. I don't know, I'm tripping.
One of the more interesting characters this season is Miss Cobell, or should I say Selvig, who straddles the innie and outie world. At face value, it seems like she's a valuable Lumen employee, even telling Helly before she goes on stage that what she's done will result in her and the other innies being tortured. But there's another theory out there that frames Cobell in a completely different light, one that actually has her being Lumen's worst nightmare.
Tell me more.
We know that Cobell has a shrine to Kier, or at least that's what we think it is. What if it's actually a shrine to her mother? We get this brief shot of a breathing tube and a hospital tag with what appears to be her mother's name. In the Lexington letter, we learn that these breathing tubes were made by Lumen and they had defects. So could Miss Cobell be planning revenge on Lumen for the death of her mother? This would explain her huge freakout after being fired. She had spent years working her way up in Lumen undercover, gathering info, and now it was all going to be for nothing. By stopping Helly and calling Milchick to interrupt Dylan, Cobell is
I'm not supposed to
her
talk
way
to
back
you.
into Lumen.
That's what he said
they
right
have to
there.
bring her back as a reward for single-handedly stopping what could have been one of the most disastrous events in Lumen history. This would also put her in a position next season to control the innies and work alongside them to bring Lumen down. One of the weirdest moments in the finale was when Mark and Patton discover Devon's baby, and Patton hustles past Mark exclaiming to everyone that he was the one to find the baby first. Like, who says that? Who even cares so
Yo,
long
bro,
as
they're so fucking weird. Yo, I'm starting to think. Yo, cause look, that nigga got looming housing, right? Obviously, you know the girl. I mean, the fucking manager broke into his fucking house, and she was snooping into his house before that guy died. I'm thinking like, a lot of these niggas might be under Lumen's control, and they might damn near not even be real NPCs.
the baby is found. There is something almost childlike about all of Rickon's friends. We have Rebecca, who has a bird who pecks at her head, Patton, who can't even recall why historians before World War II didn't call the Great War World War I.
Because World War II hadn't happened yet?
Of course. That's absolutely duh.
And everyone seems
Yeah,
infatuated
that was
with
kind of
Rickon's
stupid.
obviously terrible
Nigga,
book.
they did not
But
think they were
when
having
Outie Mark
another
meets
war.
Rickon, it's like he's meeting his hero. That's because his book, The UUR, has become a sort of anti-Lumen handbook for him. Remember, it has lines like,
Your job needs you.
what if Rickon's friends are all severed people who have been reintroduced back into the public with wiped memories? Hence why they don't have a lot of basic knowledge and have warped opinions that have been shaped by their lives at Lumen. Patton saying he found the baby first is like him wanting to be rewarded for doing a good job, just like workers at Lumen are rewarded with egg and melon parties for their good work. This would also explain why
Good
they're
diet.
also taken in by Rickon's book, because it's giving them alternate opinions about the world other than the ones they've been indoctrinated with. So is everyone chipped? I don't think so. However, I think a lot more of them are than we're led to believe.
Yeah.
There are two other things I want to mention before we end. The
Talk to
first is
me.
when James Egan says the words, the revolving. James Egan tells Helena that he looks forward to her being alongside him during this event. We don't really know what this is, but it seems to be some sort of ceremony. If I were to hazard a guess, it's when a new successor takes control of the company, perhaps at the old successor's death, and the old one becomes remembered as a wax mannequin in the Hall of Perpetuity. James would pass on the CEO title to Helena, and the process becomes like a revolving door with one Egan family member replacing another. The second thing I want to discuss, which has huge implications for Season 2, is Mark telling Devon about Lumen. This is our first non-Lumen, non-severed individual who now knows about the dangers of this program. She's also just found out that her sister-in-law, the person who helped make her brother quote-unquote wonderful, is still alive. Expect her to join forces with some of our other characters to take Lumen on. I had an absolute blast watching this first season. I will be coming out with more Severance videos, so be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on your thoughts and theories about the show below.
Bro, when I found out she was alive, bro, that shit almost made me cry. Well, it did make me cry. I had to, like, you know, because I was like, why would y'all take his wife?
After writing
Why would you take his wife? Shout out to Think Story, bro.
Bye. Have a beautiful time.